Wow. Oh, this is so exciting. It's my first trip to the US. I've never been here, and it's a great opportunity to come here, and I'm really thankful for that. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me there. Today, can I have my slides? Please. Uh-oh. Maybe. But it's no problem. I'm just introducing myself a little more. My name is Stefan Baumgartner. I'm from Austria, and maybe, okay.
It's coming.
Okay. Wait for it. Yeah. Maybe you've heard my name. Baumgartner and Austria have been in the media fairly recently, I guess half a year ago. There was this guy called Baumgartner jumping off the stratosphere, doing lots of saltos and turnarounds. And coincidentally, I'm now running on Red Bull because I have a massive jet lag. So I'm working at Natural. Oh, that's my Twitter handle, and that's my Google Plus account. Occasionally I blog on that. I'm working at Natural, which is an internet agency based in Austria with about 50 people, and apparently the biggest amount of mustache-wearing women. That's my team. That's the front-end dev team at Natural. Roswitha here loves her mustache. And we have Sailor Moon in our team. That's great. And I'm the oldest one of the bunch. And I'd like you now, before we're going on to the mobile stuff and the game stuff, to remember the days back in 1998 where people did things like that. They were putting a little banner on the website saying this site has been optimized for Internet Explorer 3 or for Netscape Navigator. Name that number. Who remembers that times? Great. Who put such a banner on his website? Yeah, there, two. Great. I've been asking this question so many times, and there was always just one person. Now I have two. I have to come to the United States more often. So, thank God we aren't doing that anymore. We have come a long, long way since that. We are now developing for all those browsers, and all browsers get along very well together. It's a great time being a front-end dev at that moment. Each browser has its advantages and disadvantages. Even IE now is allowed to sit on the campfire and having a good time, which is absolutely great. And with that solid base of having good browsers that you can work with, a new mindset popped up for front-end developers. We aren't developing anymore for certain browsers, but for certain features, and that is very important. We are not checking if the browser, if you are the Internet Explorer and developing certain applications for that medium, but checking, do you implement that feature, then I'm going to use it. And there was this company called Win Today who came to us with a certain request. They want to create casino games in their browser. They are the biggest Austrian gambling platform so far and have lots of Java-based and Flash-based games. And they want to create all those games, recreate them with HTML5 just for mobile browsers. And we were asked, oh, what, just mobile browsers? But what we heard was, hey, just modern browsers. Yeah, we are allowed to do that cool stuff everybody does, having HTML5, CSS3, all those cool JavaScript features. And the experiences we made doing just games for mobile platforms led me to the title of this talk today. It led me to mobile browser games with the small subtitle Great Expectations. Originally, I thought I was calling the talk the numbers on the roulette wheel add up to 666. And now I know why. Maybe before I continue, I'll just show you some of those games. One is Blackjack. That's a new one. We made we went online with that, I guess, a month ago. And our client had two requests. First, good animation across all mobile browsers and sound across all mobile browsers. So I turn on sound.
Willkommen bei Grand Blackjack.
Nice.
Ihre Einsätze bitte.
All right. Genie just asked me to bet something. So I'm betting here. I hope the test case is active. No, it isn't. That's our testing framework. And I have a whole of cases that don't work, and I have the good case, that one good case. And, come on. As I said, it's a testing framework. Yeah, here we are. Okay.
4, 11,
11,
21.
ja.
Coupé Bust. Spieler gewinnt.
Bust?
It's the same.
Yeah, I guess we took it over. I don't know what, I didn't know what bust meant until then. And then we have roulette. Okay, that was an error message. Starting off really good. That's again our testing framework. A pretty broken one. Okay.
Machen Sie Ihr Spiel.
The sound files are a tad older than on Blackjack. And I just bet on 28 because it's always 28. I don't know why.
Nichts geht mehr.
And here we are. Oh, nice. So we just have that spinning animation and accompanying sound. Oh, fuck, yeah. All right. So those were the two major games we did. And, well, those were the platforms we were developing for. We developed, of course, for Mobile Safari on iOS 5 and iOS 6, on native Android browsers for all those Android operating system versions, and mostly on Samsung Galaxy devices, because those were the devices that sold the best in Austria. And then we had some, I dare say, exotic bird with Windows Phone 7 and IE9, and it's funny because two of the sponsors for this event are, in fact, Nokia, having those Windows phones, and Internet Explorer. But I call them exotic birds because they have about 0.2% distribution in Austria, which is not so much, apparently. But included nonetheless because there are some great examples for that platform. Yeah, onto animation. Everybody knows how you can animate things in your browser, either through DOM manipulation, you know, the old jQuery.animate thing, which I hope nobody uses anymore. Then with CSS transitions or animations, depending on the case, or with the canvas. And DOM manipulation costs, you know, that if you just constantly changing the style attribute of an element, mobile browsers can cope with that. It's too much going on, so we can't use DOM manipulation for that. That's a screenshot from mobilehtml5.org, which has some compatibility tables just for mobile browsers and for HTML features. And as you can see, the Canvas API is supported pretty good throughout all browsers. Originally we went with that. And that's a small demo showing that. Maybe I've seen that it's from Christian Heilmann, who put it online. And it's the pics of awesome, actually a particle system application here off screen. Those pics are created and just shot all the way through the screen. And that's how it looks roughly on iOS. Pretty good. It's a performance testing application in reality, because if your JavaScript engine on a mobile browser can cope with that, it's really good. As you can see, on Windows Phone 7, it's still fairly good. They aren't flying, but they're more like floating, relaxed through the sky. Really nice. And we tested that on Android too. Be patient. Wait, hey, Dick, here they are, yeah. So, nobody can tell me that it's flying. So, it's more like crawling. But I like that application very much because you get a good feeling if your browser is capable of doing good canvas animation. So anytime someone comes to me and asks, am I able to do animation with canvas on my browser, I tell them, yeah, when pigs fly. So we just have one problem. We don't know how to test for a certain frame rate, for having a certain frames per second. So how do you feature test low frames per second? You can't. You may create a very small canvas animation and measure the frames per second, but that's not good for the user. So for our application, we didn't need canvas at all. We could achieve the same effect with transitions. So yeah, we are using transitions for that. And that's the roulette wheel running with a CSS transition on iOS. Pretty good, a little fast, but you can adjust that, perfect. And hopefully on Android we have roughly the same experience. Oh yeah, great. Looks good. Have you seen that? I come to it later. And on IE, Windows Phone 7. Oh yeah. So what happened on Android? Everybody of you knows CSS animations and CSS transitions. There's one big difference between animations and transitions. Animations don't keep the end state. Transitions do. So if you're having, if you're like in that case, we have been rotating from 0 degrees to about 3,500 degrees. The animation flips back to its starting point, whereas the transition stops at 3,500 degrees. So if you're a browser developer, you might implement such a, that's pseudocode, such an animation function for your CSS animations, just from a certain keyframe to the other keyframe. And if you are developing the transition method, you would do it like that. A transition is nothing more than an animation from 0% to 100% with keeping the state at 100%. And that's what the Android browser does. It's just that between the first line of code and the second line of code in this method, he breaks a little. He needs time to execute the second method. So we were fine with that, because this, we could easily trick this flipping of the wheel by just showing a small magnified version of the wheel, and the user doesn't get it. So that's okay. And for IE, it's fair enough. IE9 isn't able to do CSS transitions or CSS animations. That's because, and that is really important for IE9, IE9 is a direct port of the desktop IE9. So you can be sure that if IE9 on desktop is able to do a certain feature, the mobile version is also able to do the same feature. This goes even farther, because this also means that IE9 on Windows Phone 7 isn't a touch browser. Even though you touch all the time, it isn't technically a touch browser. It has mouse events. So touch start is mouse down, touch end is mouse up, and touch move is mouse move. So, but we are fine with that because we can easily feature test for CSS transitions, and if we have transitions, we are using them. Otherwise, if we have canvas, we are using the canvas implementation. So everything is fine for Windows browser doing feature detection. You have seen blackjack, and for blackjack we had this nice little card flipping animation. And that's some code which everybody of you might have seen already. It's one of those many card flipping demos out there. The clue is you are using 3D transforms. You have the rotate Y. Yeah, it's Y in German. So I guess it's Y, rotate Y. Yeah, you're turning along the Y-axis. And you have two divs. One turned about 0 degrees, showing its front to the user. The other one turned about 180 degrees, showing its back to the user. And if you set on the flag back face visibility hidden, you don't see the back, so you just have to do this and flipping them along the y-axis, so you get this little nice card flipping animation. That's the HTML code for that, and that's how it looks on iOS. Yeah, absolutely great, works perfect. And feature tests say that it works also on Android, so let's try it. And this is kind of odd, because all those feature tests work. So technically, the Android browser should be able to do that animation. He even has the rotate function. He's just ignoring the axis, so it's just rotating it somehow. So, our clients didn't like that animation, although it was kind of funny, having those cars flying out and just doing the sound things. But we said, okay, we just don't do the flip animation on those Android browsers, but how can you achieve that? Yeah, by doing user agent sniffing again, which you shouldn't do, but we hadn't any other possibility for that. So that's on for those animations we needed. There is another interesting issue concerning the orientation of your device. Not that kind of orientation. Landscape orientation, for instance. So we have this padding pane here, and to reduce the amount of event handlers bound to elements, we just have that one element, and if the user taps on that, we are calculating on which field he is, and we need the orientation for that, because we have it either in landscape or in portrait. So we need to know whether our browser is in landscape mode or portrait mode in our JavaScript. In CSS, that's fairly easy. We have those two media queries, and we can do everything portrait landscape related with those. In JavaScript, this code is as old as Mobile Safari. You might have seen that already. It just says, okay, on orientation change, I check the degrees of my device, and if it's 0, you just get 0, 90 degrees, and 180 degrees. So if it's 0, you are in portrait mode. If it's 90 degrees, you are in landscape mode. Which is good for smartphones and iOS tablets or iPads. But if you're looking at the Galaxy tab, it's kind of weird, because the 0 degree position is the portrait mode, whereas on the iPad, the landscape mode, sorry, whereas on the iPad, the 0 degree position is the portrait mode. So you should think a little different. You're not checking for the degrees of the orientation, but if it's portrait mode or landscape mode. And since in CSS this works rather good, we can use some code like that, using Match Media, like I guess Jason showed it today in the morning, which works perfectly. You just do the Match Media thing and check if the media query matches. But unfortunately that didn't work well on older Android browsers, because they don't have this API. So we solved it rather hacky. My colleague came to me the other day and said, you know, you did the CSS for the padding pane in Roulette. Is this padding pane always positioned absolute in the landscape mode? And I said, oh, yeah, it is. And he came back a few hours later and said, is the padding pane always positioned relative in the portrait mode? And I said, yes. So we didn't talk about that anymore, but after a week I came to him and asked, why did you have use for that information? And he said, yeah, well, I have this orientation change event handler bound, and I'm checking if the padding pane is absolutely positioned or relatively positioned, so I know if it's in landscape mode or portrait mode. Which is ugly, but it works. So we did a little more sophisticated version of that. It's very similar to that short code snippet Jason showed this morning. I guess it was by Jerry McKee. We are just creating an after element on the body, putting some content in there which indicates if we are portrait mode or landscape mode, and with the media query, we are changing that content. And in our JavaScript, we are checking for the content of this element. And this works rather good, actually. So, enough of orientation and of animation. We now want to hear something. Who worked with HTML5 audio? Okay. On mobile browsers? Okay, just one, yeah. I just give a short introduction on the HTML5 audio API. Compatibility is great. Yeah, for compatibility. And that's some basic API functions. You know, you have this audio element, and you can access it through JavaScript and just call .play, and it plays, hopefully. With .pause, you can pause the same audio file. So that's practically everything you need to run an HTML5 audio file. There's no stop method. Stop is done through the pause method and setting current time. That's one of the most important properties for that, to 0 again. So you're rewinding your audio file. There are some other properties and methods. Duration is rather important, so you know how long your MP3 file or audio file lasts. And you have two events called time update and ended. Time update always fires when he progresses through the audio file, and your audio controls would update the time. That's why it's called a time update. And if the sound file has ended, you get the ended event. That's everything you need if you want to do like your own audio player with HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript. You just code your CSS, HTML code for the user interface and attach those events to the buttons. And yeah, we did that for a short demo. We just have two audio files, and I'm clicking on one and it plays. And what I want to achieve is that once the first audio file ends, we are playing the second audio file. So, for instance, if you are thinking back to roulette, it says something like 28 black. If you have 28 black, so we're first playing 28 and then black. And this works on desktop rather well. So we created some sound files using that technique and tried it on mobile WebKit browsers. This goes for all those mobile WebKit browsers. Yeah. That's kind of interesting, actually. Why is that so? That's think of accessing a mobile website, entering the URL, open up the website, and some JavaScript code gets executed and downloads a 60 megabyte audio file with a huge podcast directly once you open that. So, Mobile WebKit prevents that case by just allowing audio playing on touch. You need to have a user interaction to run audio at all, to download the file. Once you have downloaded the file, you can do anything with it. You can access the current time, you can call on all those events, you can do almost anything. So we had two audio files. We downloaded the first one by our user interaction, but when we wanted to play the second one, it didn't work because we didn't have the user interaction for the second one. So, in reality, if you want to have a good gaming experience, you are bound to have just only one audio file. There just can be only one, which you have to download on the first interaction you do. If you remember the applications I showed you earlier, I switched on sound on purpose so that we have sound, but rather that's the trick, that we download one file, namely the guy saying, "Welcome to Grand Black Jack." And that was our first application. There we were a little trickier by having this startup screen. The user has to close, and with this interaction, he downloaded that one file, and we played the first entry. But how did we play the other files? Well, we just had one, so we did some sort of audio sprite. We took every sound file we had and put it into one big audio file with several silence pauses in between, just to make sure that that there's enough room for the audio file to play. And instead of playing a certain file with that sound, we're just playing a snippet out of that. We're starting at, let's say, 5 seconds and play until 6 seconds. So we created some sort of a map with all those entries we needed, with a start time and an ending time. And our play function now goes like that. We have that map with all those entries, picking out one entry, setting the current time to its starting time, and then listening on the time update function until the current time is bigger than the ending time, and then we stop. So we're able to just play that little part that you want to know. It's important that you have the very first file you want to play directly at the beginning of your sound sprite, because you can't access current time until you have downloaded it. So that's a condition you have to keep in mind. So we did that for roulette and for blackjack, and on desktop,
Sad.
yeah, works really good. On Android,
Sad.
it works really good. We're just playing the 7 sound in our sound sprite, and on iOS,
6.
yeah, well, this didn't happen in roulette, and I was wondering what have I done differently between roulette and grand blackjack. And apparently, I got a new MacBook, and I didn't have the audio software anymore installed on that book. So I used Media.io, which is a great website for all your audio converting needs. You can just upload any file and get it downloaded in any of those formats you want to have. I contacted that guy, Johan Burkhardt, and asked him, you know, I compressed that file and it doesn't work on iOS. And he said, yeah, that's the way I'm compressing the MP3 file. And as it turned out, iOS doesn't like a variable bitrate. Are you familiar with bitrate compression in sound files? Somebody know? Yeah? Just for completeness, you have 3 possibilities, either doing a constant bitrate, which results in a rather large file, or doing a variable bitrate, where the bitrate is adjusting to sound, so all those silence parts we had in between are just compressed really, really tight, because you don't need a bitrate of 128K to achieve that. And we have the average bitrate, which is just something in between. And as it turned out, this is a problem media players face since the very early days of being media players, that they can't cope with variable bit rates, that they can play it correctly, but if you want to access a certain time code, you are just accessing anything. And that's what happened on iOS. So we just compressed it with average bit rate, and it turned out really fine. So we forgot to look at IE for quite some time. On IE, things are again a little different. First of all, you can access files directly. So the demo I showed you in first place with those 2 audio files playing works perfectly. IE just downloads it. But you can't access current time in IE9. So what we were doing is just check if it's possible to play a file at startup. And if it's possible that the file is played at startup, we are playing the files directly. So instead of having our sound sprite with the sound 7 somewhere in between, we are just directly playing 7.mp3. And in all other cases, we are using that sound sprite. And we developed a feature detection test for that, which works like that. We are having one demo audio element in our DOM. We are setting the source to 1 second of silence. This is the asset it needs to work. And then we try to play it. This try and catch block is really important for that, because if you don't have the JavaScript application is going to crash. You get that nice don't exception L11 message, and if you don't have it excluded in some file, your whole application is going to crash. So if it's possible to play that sound, and it runs through its end, we are just using files. Otherwise, we're using the sound sprite. All right, I guess I'm really rushing through that. Okay. Some final tips after half an hour. I was talking a lot about Windows Phone 7 and i9. That's because I haven't been able to access the Windows Phone 8 and i10. I'm assuming that it has roughly the same philosophy of being a direct port of i10, which is great because you can develop it on your desktop and don't have any bad surprises once you run it on your mobile browser. But what I did before, I was going over there to the Nokia booth and asked if I could get the Windows Phone 8 for a few minutes and try my applications out there. So if you find somewhere a phone that you don't know, just ask. Maybe you can check your applications. You can check how they are working and how they are maybe breaking there. Because so I guess with the exception of that, our blackjack games and poker games, break quite on i10. But now I have a solution in mind. Afterwards, I'm going to switch some flags, and tomorrow I'm again going to the Nokia booth and try an application again. So if you find somewhere a phone that you don't know, just take it and ask if you can use it. And another one that's really important, prototype everything. If you are doing an animation, do it for itself on a blank page and just try how it works all on its own before you attach any game logic whatsoever. Just do the animation for itself, write a little demo and test if this animation works on all those phones you need to have it. Because it's easy integrated afterwards and you can fix it very early at a very early stage. And yeah. So what's next with browsers? As you might have realized by now, I'm not so happy with the Android browsers. The native Android browser is, I guess it stopped somewhere in development, and I guess they don't develop it anymore further. So you might remember the other case where a browser window said we are not developing that browser any further. It was about 10 years ago. It had a little 6. And I fear that is the case with the Android browser. Chrome is coming. Androids should rejoice. Chrome is coming. But you can't make sure that Chrome is the default browser on any Android device you're going to purchase. So even more important is that those Android devices with the bad browser are many. We had a lot of trouble with all those Android 2.3 browsers, which are about 44% in distribution, which is an insanely high number. They aren't able to install Chrome, and they aren't, in many cases, not even allowed to update their operating system version. Operating system versions are distributed by the vendor and by the mobile phone provider, at least in Austria. If our mobile phone provider doesn't support the next Android version, you just simply don't get it. You have to be a little tech savvy to update your browser, and most of the users aren't. So I'm quite interested how this turns out, because I'm happy that Android 4 now has a strong user base, but I can't tell which browser runs on that, and the Android 4 browser, the native Android 4 browser, is just as bad as the Android 2 browser. Even worse, PhoneGap is a huge thing, but PhoneGap runs on those browsers. So you can't make, you are facing the same problems with your apps as you face with having it directly in the browser. But what you should know is that Firefox is already there, and you should use Firefox when possible, and you should promote your users to use another browser like Firefox or Chrome. So we had this little, or maybe you know that, which one of you is using HTML5 boilerplate? Okay. They had this little code snippet in there saying if you are i7 or less, you get a little pop-up where it says you're using an ancient browser, please update. Maybe we should do that with all those Android 2 native clients, because I don't think I can make my point clear now. Maybe we'll talk afterwards that, but Android 2 browser sucks. I want that for the future. I want to have different browser engines running on those mobile phones. I want to have the same thing that we have on the desktop right now. I want to have a good Chrome version, a good Opera version. I want to have the Firefox. I want the users to decide which browsers they want to use, because I don't want that what happened in the desktop is happening in the mobile world again. So yeah, that's it for now.
First of all, I think everyone has to thank you for saving them like 200 hours of testing.
Yeah, I hope so.
We have plenty of time for questions for Stefan, if anybody has any. Hands high. There's one right there. There's a guy, hold on one sec, he's going to grab you a mic.
So there are things out there like jQuery that helps you solve all the cross-browser issues.
jQuery.
Is there anything like that for a game engine that can solve cross-browser issues? Like there's Impact.js out there that'll help solve those issues. Is there anything for a mobile?
We were using jQuery for that, but the problem isn't that jQuery solves a lot of problems, actually, even on mobile browsers. So there was this talk of don't use jQuery on mobile browsers because it's huge and you don't need it because you have a good DOM API. But what you don't know, jQuery fixes a lot of WebKit bugs and a lot of WebKit bugs for mobile browsers. But those bugs aren't really fixable at all, because all those libraries are checking if certain features are available, and they get a big yes from the browsers. So, despite failing in their execution. So, you might use such a library, but you can't make sure that it fixes all your problems. So, it's just testing. You have to test your application in different browsers and make sure that it works like you expected. Otherwise, you have mostly to rely on user agent sniffing and making those, changing your code depending on the user agent. Plus, it's not even sure that you're done with user agent sniffing. HTC Android 2 browser can work completely different than a Samsung Android 2 browser with the same version, which should be the same browser. The problem, I guess, is not only the browser, but also the hardware and the power of the hardware. And you can't check that with the library.
Any other questions? Nothing? All right, thank you. Oh, come on, you can do it. There you go.
I saved that much time just for questions and hopefully making my point clear with those Android tags.
I know that one point is clear.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, I just don't like Android browsers.
Did you forget what point that was? The Android 2 browser sucks?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
The native Android browser, the default
I got
browser
that.
sucks. Big time. Yeah.
Now you did a lot of testing to find like these different avenues of exploring ways of getting around the problems. The testing, did it fall on yourself and your team, or did you have like a separate testing group which reported both these problems?
Both. We did, actually, we have this thing in our company, we are about 8 people, and it's one's duty to check the code of the one guy sitting across from him. So we are in the lucky condition that we have a big browser lab at our company, not as big as with Todd and Scott's at Filament Group. They have this huge, I don't know, I guess they need a garage for that by now. But we have plenty of devices here, and the first thing is to check your prototyped feature on the browsers that are available, on the devices that are available. And once you integrate them in your application, now the developer is checking if it works again. And then we are going to the designers, and they are playing for about 3 to 5 hours, and then coming with a huge list of bugs. And we are doing the same thing again, over and over again. What we realized is that to test it really, really good and to make sure it works, can just work by testing it on the device. There are plenty of simulators out there, like you might have a browser stack account. They have plenty of Android devices there, and it's good for having a certain glimpse of what to expect, but you can't make sure that this is the real thing that happens. So test on the device, test by yourself, and test by others. That's how we are doing that. And there's a trend now in Europe. I don't know if it's the same as in the US. There is this little thing called Open Device Lab. You know that? It's just some place where you can go, bring your own device, take a look at the other devices, and test your application there and develop that. It's a really great thing that such things as Open Device Labs are being created, and there are plenty of them in Germany, there are some in England, and we are trying to create one in Austria as well. So that's the best way to do that.
Is that it? All right, and I have one question.
Yeah.
Where you get all of this? And if you maintain that archive, I'm a little creeped out by that.
Well, actually, I just had the so much win meme, and I was searching for just some more, and it's amazing what you find. You don't want to know.
Some call it amazing, some call it other things.
Creepy.
Anyway, thanks again, Stefan.
Okay, I have just one thing. I'm really happy to be here. I had an amazing time, and tomorrow is my birthday, and I'm going drunk tonight with you.
Drinks are on PhoneGap.
Drinks on? Okay.
Drinks are on PhoneGap tonight.
Okay.
So celebrate with that. Thanks again, Stefan. We will be back in a half an hour, 4:30. Ben and Dion